Hi, I'm Jim and this is Jim's Fix-It Shop, and today we're going to try to get some wires in this machine and get it hooked up. Now I'm going to be moving the camera around periodically, so bear with me. First thing I want to hook up in here is our little brain. I guess, I don't know if we can plug that in once we get it bolted on. Yeah, I guess we can. Now, right back here is a hole. You can see it disappear when I put my finger over it. And there's two holes up here on the front that I ran a 1/4-20 tap through and tapped them. And when I get to that point, another video or two, I'll tell you why I tapped them holes. But I went to a short 1/4-20 round head screw, and we're going to put this little interlock in place in the back of this case. We'll tighten that up a little better in a minute. We got two main wiring harnesses. The first one we're going to stick in is the one with the solenoid and a long black wire and a white wire, I believe it probably was at one time. This goes to the stator on the engine. This one goes on the starter. Now, why this wire isn't red is beyond me, because it's carrying the positive charge to the starter. So wouldn't you think they would have made that red? I don't know. But it goes through a large hole right back here. Let me move this. I think you can see my finger. That's where the bulk of this wire goes through and goes back to where the starter should be. I can get it through here. And then we're going to screw down the solenoid onto the bottom of the case and get all these wires in position. Now I'm using a socket, a short extension, and a 3/8 socket. I should say a ratchet and a short extension. I kind of like these extensions with a knurled area on them. It helps you spin it with your fingers once you get the screw started. In fact, I might just take the ratchet right off so I can get these screws started a little better in here. This has got to go on the other side to hook to the battery. You can hardly see in here, let alone get your hands in there. I think I got one started. Now we can get the other one in there. There we go. Now this particular solenoid, I guess, I always pronounce that wrong, is grounded through the bracket that bolts it to the machine. It only has one lug on it for a wire to hook to. Oh, this one don't want to tighten up. There we go. Now the new, or I should say newer solenoids you buy, here's one here. It has 2 lugs on it, and then there's the short wire I talked about. It has a connector on the end. You snap it on either one of these lugs, and you put the eyelet under one of the bolts holding the solenoid to the frame. That grounds it. These do not have an internal ground like the older ones did. I don't know if that was an issue or why they changed that. I'm not really sure. Now these wires bend around and hook in some clips on the other side. Now my machine has 4 wires coming down out of this tube. Here's the clips. I'm going to put this wire underneath of all these. And I believe I might stick it, we'll see how it fits here, underneath the cable going to the clutch and brake. Yeah, I like the way that fits better. And these will come back here. Now this one has 4 wires originally. Mine has 5 because I added this wire that goes up to the headlight. You have a ground wire that goes over the bolt that holds your engine on. You have the black wire goes to the, what do they call it, magneto shorting block. That's what kills your engine when you turn the key off. And then I have 2 wires that go inside of here that hook to the wiring harness that comes off the mower deck. And you can see this goofy little setup they have for the clutch and brake pedal. This red wire will be running, get it untangled here, inside, probably go right through any hole in the back, and that's going to go over to the switch that I'm putting on the other side to turn the light off and on with. Now, I don't know if you can see down in here or not. Here's where we mounted the, let's move that. Here's where we mounted the solenoid and your little interlock. Now this bunch of wires, we can snap this thing on here. Well, maybe we better feed this wire through first. This comes out of the big hole where the other wire just came out of. And it goes down this hole. That's for this switch that I'm going to be snapping on the bracket for the yoke to tell your machine you have the clutch pushed in. Now we'll snap this on here. This thing kind of got a mind of its own. Once you snap that on there, it's extremely hard to get it off. And this wire we have to run through a large hole up here and up through for the switch on the seat. Now, I'm gonna stand this thing up and I'll show you where this switch goes for the yoke. Okay, we got this stood up and we're gonna put in the switch that goes on this tab that's sticking out from the top of your rear case that your yoke will activate when you have the clutch pushed all the way in, and I can't even reach it from here. And we'll plug the wire on. Now this wire can only go on one way because this is a dual switch. And it has a tab sticking up on this side that will catch on this tab if you try to snap it on the wrong way. Let me see if I can get a better camera angle. Well, I hope you can see a little better like that. We'll get that plugged in there. Try to get my hand in there to snap that down in place. And that should do it. Now, if you can't see how all this is going together, just send me an email and I will help you through wiring your machine. Let me set this thing back down on the table and we'll be right back. Okay, that wasn't a pretty sight. I did get the engine up on here, and that's a pretty good accomplishment for an old man. These are about 75 pounds. And back to the wiring. I used a 7/16 socket to tighten up the two nuts on the solenoid. Gotta pronounce that right. Inside here I've got two male shielded connectors left over, and you can see the one here. The other one's a little shorter. That's for the two wires that will come up from the mower deck, and they go through a hole here in the bottom and come up through here, and there's a way that they tie them so they won't go back down and come unplugged. Now I've got a few wires left back here. Now I number these when I take them apart, even though I've had a lot of these apart. If you're going to do something like this and you got a bunch of wires, do yourself a favor and buy one of these. That machine over there has one wire coming from the ignition switch because it has no starter, no battery, no light. And it has no stator. That is strictly a pull start engine. There's nothing you can do unless you want to buy a new flywheel and a stator and a battery, a solenoid, and it's a lot of work. Personally, I have a lot of viewers that are looking for strictly pull start engines, so they don't want to deal with all this electric crap that's on them. But this is a roll of numbers, and it goes from 0 to 9. It's a sticky tape. You open up any one of these little doors, and you can pull out as much of this tape as you want, and it has a serrated edge that it rips against, and this happens to be, it's a little sticky, number 5s. And every number is underlined, so you don't get a 6 and a 9 mixed up, because they look identical as far as the way they have them wrote. So you do need the little lines under them to distinguish from the 6 and the 9. But I put them on a lot of stuff I tear apart. Even though I've done it before, it's really easy to get some numbers mixed up. Now these wires that came out of that main harness go over to the other side. And why, when Briggs & Stratton made these engines, why in the world did they put the oil filter right here. What's going to happen when you pull that oil filter off? Where do you think all that dirty oil's going? Yep, right on your wiring and the top of your rear case. So I usually slide a large paper plate under there and kind of bend the end down to work as a funnel to try to catch most of it and get it off the top of the case before it drains. The rest of these wires go to the other side of the engine, so we're gonna flip them through there, and I'm getting into that NICs that I put on the pilot bushing. Let's see if I got room to bring the camera around to the other side. Okay, I didn't have room on the other side of the bench, so I turned the machine around on top of the bench. That took some careful driving. Now we get in here. I've got these wires. I'm going to leave these up on top of the oil filter so when I change it, it don't run down on the wiring. I have a ground wire that has to go on the bolt that holds the engine down. I also have the negative battery cable that will go on that same bolt and will run the other end through this large hole. That goes on the bolt. I have a ground wire that goes up to the ignition switch that sends ground back to the shorting block that kills the engine. So that has to go on that bolt. And let's see, this is the actual kill wire. Let's pull that out of there. This is the magneto shorting block that I speak of. Let me pull the camera over on this side. It's just a nut and a stud sticking out from the bracket where your accelerator hooks to. And it is totally isolated from any ground. Otherwise, your engine would never start. This wire goes on there. And this ground wire, oh, I have another one. This one comes from your ignition switch. This one is coming from your interlock. So if something's not set right, whether it be your clutch pedal, your engaging lever on your mower deck, or your seat, it won't let the engine start. This wire, we got to run back over here. That plugs into one of the tabs on your solenoid. That's sending current back from the ignition switch. It sends 12 volts back, activates the solenoid, and sends power to the starter. Now these little clips on the side of the frame, we're going to pinch closed best we can. That holds the wire in place so it doesn't get caught on anything, like maybe the tire. Then we come back here. This white plug plugs into the engine. That's for the stator. This connector goes on the starter. If I can get it started. And as you can tell, if you watched enough of my shows, you'll know I hate these little things. I haven't changed mine yet. That will be coming out and be a pipe nipple and cap to extend this out here so it drains and it doesn't run on, hopefully, the back of the machine. But that will be going bye-bye in one of the videos to come. Now, the switch for my headlight, I mounted just above where the accelerator goes. I could grab me a socket for this thing. These are all different as far as what holds them on. This is a 5/16 head on this, or you can use a Torx driver, and you just fish this thing up in here. Might as well get this in place. At least it's starting to look like something again. And the cable goes in this plastic block on the side of the engine. You want to be careful with that because these do break. But you slide, it's got this little funny bend on the cable. Get it somewhere where you can see it. So you have to stick that in the plastic block and then twist it sideways. And then it goes under this clamp. To adjust this, you have to adjust this. It slides back and forth under that clamp. You want to put this lever all the way up on choke and then slide this back and forth until your choke is activated, and then tighten the clamp down and it's set. Now for the switch for the headlight. On my switch I put a plastic boot on them. You can buy these at your electrical store where you can get these rolls of numbers. It just goes over top the switch, keeps the water and dirt from getting inside where that toggle works. We'll take off the mounting nut and temporarily stick that up through there. Now to pick up current for this, I'm going to run it over through some holes up here. And hook it to the positive battery cable on the where it hooks to the solenoid. So we'll run this through a couple of holes and pull it over on that side. This wire is coming down through the tube from the headlight. To get it through the holes, I couldn't have the end on it yet. So we'll crimp that on right now. and the crimp is on the switch. Now we can mount the switch permanently. We may want to tighten them up a little. I'm not sure how tight I have them. Now you can mount this any way you want, for it to throw forward to turn on or come backwards to turn on. And we'll put the nut on here. Now to tighten this up, I'll use a 14mm socket. And you'll need either a medium or a deep socket to get over top of the toggle on the switch. Then we'll put our rubber boot on. Like I said, it just keeps dirt and water out. You don't have to have that on there. Switch will probably last for years without that. So this side is pretty much done. I got the battery cables on there. All we got left to do is put the battery in, which I have to buy a new one because that one is not holding a charge anymore. I'm surprised it even works as small as it is. Then the battery cover will fit on here. So I guess I could spin this back around. I don't really like the way that's hitting on the tire. I guess I'll put it up here like this. We'll spin this tractor back around and we'll hook up the few wires I've got on the other side. Okay, got a couple wires left. This one is going to the headlight. We're going to crimp that on. We're going to hook that underneath the positive battery cable that's hooked to the solenoid. And I'm sorry you can't see much because I can barely get my hands in here to work on this thing. Put that on the stud and put the big nut back on. I did throw the battery in just to see if the headlight works. This thing's getting more miles on top of the bench than I've put on it since I bought it. I had to spin it around again. Now this wire clips on the lug on the solenoid. And that's about all of the wires. Let's reach over here and flip this switch. And looks like the headlight's working. Like I said, these are really nice headlights. Very bright, and they don't use a lot of current because they're all LEDs. They should last, I wouldn't want to guess how many hours that thing's going to last on the front of your machine. Because the only time I ever use a headlight on this thing is when I'm sucking leaves in the fall because of the time change. Now some states don't do the time change anymore, and I sure wish Michigan was one of them, because it really messes a lot of people up health-wise. Now I don't have the nuts on the bolts holding the engine down, because I'm going to have to take the engine back off to get this thing off this bench. I'm working on, if I ever get this room cleaned out, buying a new bench that is air over hydraulics, and it lifts it. It goes up to at least this high, 30 some inches, and it goes all the way down to about 6 inches off the floor. Nice outfit. I've seen one up to, well, they have 2 of them up to White Lake Nursery where I deal with, and the mechanic there, he says he loves it. It's adjustable to any height from the 36 down to the 6 or 7 inches off the floor, and it's I can't remember how long it is, 6 feet long, somewhere in there, and 4 feet wide with the extensions. Otherwise it's 2 foot wide, and it'll lift 1,500 pounds. So I'll even be able to put my Ingersoll on top of it to work on that, because that tractor's pushing about 1,100 pounds after I loaded the rear tires to give me more traction out in the woods when I pull my trailer full of wood, or if you're snow blowing with it, because that one has a 48-inch snow blower that goes on the front of it, and it has a 42-inch rototiller that goes on the back. And I'll tell you, when the tires are loaded, you have a lot better traction to use these implements that come with this machine. So basically the wiring is done. The only thing I got left to do is put the seat switch on the seat when I get it on here. I did notice I have some rust on this bracket for the gas tank, so I'm going to take that off when I'm done with this video, take it to work tomorrow, sandblast it, and repaint it black. So like I said, it's awfully hard to try to see in this little hole they give you for wiring this thing. If you have any problems, or if you're wiring your machine, you need help, you can always send me an email. I answer them all, and believe me, I get a bunch of them. But they're not all questions. I get a lot of emails from people just with thank yous, and one of them I would like to read to you one day, about the influence I had on a viewer that had lost a spouse and just kind of give up on all of his woodworking and his other side projects, until one day he found my channel and I guess inspired to go back to doing what he loves to do. I'm gonna find that, and one of these videos I'll read it to you. It's a very nice letter. So don't forget to subscribe. I really need subscribers. And hit that thumbs up. This is getting way long. And share a video with a friend, or someone that has a snapper. It's really easy to do. Heck, I even figured it out. So until next time, work safe, have fun, and keep on snapping. We'll talk to you soon. So long.